Good morning, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying your NRF. Welcome to your last day here. Thank you for taking the time to come out and join us in this session. I hope you had a chance to see Ryan Reynolds yesterday anyways. It's going to be just as riveting to be able to see us here on stage. And I hope you had a great holiday season that just kind of concluded. And for many retailers, that actually marks the end of your fiscal year. And I hope you're able to achieve all your sales goals. One of the things is, as business owners, you're probably always looking for that next bit. How could we drive our comp just that little bit more? That's probably why you're even here at NRF. You're looking for real business solutions to problems to help drive your business forward. So a question, what if you could have lifted your last year's sales by an additional 4% comp? What would that have meant to your business? Would it have left you in the positive? Would it have actually validated the new store model or the sales program that you just rolled out? Would it have greenlit projects for your next year? Would it have changed the financial targets that you have going to this year? More importantly, though, what if I told you that StoreForce could help you achieve that 4% comp lift by just improving the schedule quality? And let me put a caveat on that. I don't mean that we need you to add more hours. That's not what we're talking about. Just using your existing labor hours more effectively. My name's Sean Bonneau. I am a client success manager with StoreForce, and my sole job is to help clients drive performance, streamline operations to get the most out of the StoreForce tool and drive their business forward. Today, we're going to be talking about how StoreForce may do that for your businesses, be able to help doing that in scheduling. Now, tell me if any of this next part resonates with your business. You and or your finance team scrutinize over the labor targets, perhaps some arguments back and forth about what the store needs, maybe what finance thinks you should have to go through. And that makes sense, right? It's your number one controllable expense. And in turn, you take those targets, you give them to your store managers. Perhaps they're using Excel or some base template to take those important hours and then be able to schedule it because the managers know their business. And while they may know their business, what data are you providing them to help make sure that their schedules are as effective as possible? In fact, we've done studies with our clients that show from the poorest quality schedule to the strongest schedule is a 25% comp gap. And if we don't know the quality of your schedules, how do you know how much opportunity you have to be able to close? Now, joining me in a few moments is William Bennett. He's the Director of Data Analytics for Journeys, and he's going to be sharing their personal insights of adopting the StoreForce and the impact that it's had on their business, so that we don't just talk data, we put it in real terms about how other retailers are using our tool. But you might be wondering, what makes StoreForce credible in this? These are some pretty audacious numbers we're throwing up there, a 25% gap, and that we can help you achieve a 4% comp. Well, let me tell you a little bit about StoreForce. First, you should know that we're built by retailers for retailers. We know what it's like to be in the holiday season. We know how important your traffic is to you. We know what it is to provide a great brand experience. I myself have 30 plus years in retail from being a manager, district manager, field leader, and my peers equally have that similar experience. So when we talk about your business, we understand your real world problems that you're actually trying to solve. And as I mentioned in my job description, we work with our tool to be able to streamline your operations and drive your performance. We do that in 4 key areas: workforce management, which is what we'll be talking about today, data insights, task management, and communication. And we're very proud to say we have over 15 years of doing that just with our clients. And speaking of clients, we work with over 100 different clients around the world. And that around the world is an important thing. When you're doing scheduling, not only can we help you have the strongest schedules for your business, we can ensure that they're compliant with each country or state laws. So while they're strong schedules, they're also compliant to labor laws, and that all the employees' needs are being met within that. We work across all verticals, as you can see from the list of clients that we have here: footwear, apparel, groceries, department stores. We have a model that will be able to work in any which way that your business is going. And more importantly, we pride ourselves on being a community for retailers. We host an annual community conference where we bring our clients together to talk about business insights, trends, analysis, and real world problems that they're facing. Because we believe when everyone is successful, retail wins as a whole. And we want to help you be able to do that as well for your business. So we're going to actually extend our community to you here today. You're actually going to be a part of our retail community. And I'm going to start to share some insights with you. One of the first insights that I want to be able to say is that 50% of your sales is happening in just 20 hours of business. More importantly, if I were to say that 50% of your traffic is happening in 20 hours, which means we need to help you be able to achieve your 50% sales in that time. If I go back to my earlier example, if it resonates at all with your business, if your managers are building schedule without data or insights to guide them on where those 20 hours are, how do you know if your hours are just a cost on the P&L line or an investment in driving your business forward? We can help you do that. We do this by taking your traffic data and your sales data, and we take all that historic information and we put it into our application to be able to uniquely for each store tell them where their busy hours are going to be by week, by every week of the year within their business. Not a generic number across all stores, unique to each store. You might have a store in a mall, you might have a store on a street front, and their patterns will be different. We appreciate that. That's where understanding retail comes in, to know that not all stores are the same and their trends may be different within this. We are so confident that if we help guide your stores, know where those 20 hours are, that they are going to have strong performance. We actually measure those 20 hours. We call them peak coverage. And when we take the hours that you provide, not more hours, the same hours you already had allocated to your stores, we help guide them to where to be scheduled. We measure your store's effectiveness to be able to schedule to those peak hours. We call that our peak coverage percent. And we know that when stores schedule to 90% of what we recommend they should, they will outperform stores that don't. We see lifts in conversion, average basket, and an increase in sales, simply through better allocation of the hours that you've already provided them. Beyond this, not every store can always achieve 90%. Maybe they're in the middle of hiring or had some staff turnover. Maybe they don't have the right availability, or maybe they're just being poorly managed and the manager doesn't have the data insights to be able to guide them. But we do know that they can incrementally get better. So last year at our community conference, we did a whole analysis of our clients' data to go one step further about the incremental improvement about how stores can effectively schedule. Essentially, we took all of our clients' data for an entire year, 52 weeks of schedules, times thousands of stores, gave us 150,000 different points of data to be able to analyze. To put it simply, what you're seeing on the graph here, we took every schedule where this schedule was able to hit 90% of our recommended coverage, and you can see the 90% there going up to the highest green circle. Stores that scheduled at 90% last year had a 3% comp. We then did the same activity for the remaining schedules, grouping them in 10% increments, creating different bands. Every schedule that hit 80%, the next green dot, and then going down 70%, 60 to 50%. That 4% that I mentioned we could help you with is the delta between each one of these bands. Imagine if you had the insights to which schedules and the percentage of qualities they were doing, and you could systematically help your stores get more consistent, even moving up from one band to the next. A store may not be able to get to 90% overnight, and we wouldn't want them to lose sight of incremental improvement. Moving up from one band to the next will also help drive your comp. That's the 4%, not hitting 90%, but incremental improvements. Now, the size of the circles you see represent the number of weeks that fall within that. Now, this is our clients' data. You can see from our clients data who have the benefit already of using StoreForce that the majority of their schedules fall within the 70% and moving up to 90%. That's already the benefit that they have. They have this insights and are able to have these kind of successful numbers. That 25% gap I said earlier from the poorest to the highest, that's the delta from the lowest group there at 50% or lower, all the way up to our 90. Imagine what that would be worth for your business. Here's a question to think about. Where would your stores fall on this? You might be able to draw some conclusions based on your comp results or store. Maybe they fall in a certain band, but without data, you won't be aware of it. So how can you help guide them or improve your business without those insights? Hold on to that thought, because we're going to extend a special offer to you after this session on what StoreForce can do to help maybe give you some better insights on what your schedule quality is. With that being said, I could talk about data all day, but we wanted to bring up Billy from Journeys to be able to share how the data and using StoreForce has impacted their business. So you can hear it from the person themselves that's using the tool. So Billy, if you want to join us on stage.
Sean?
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
So I think we will maybe just set some of the framework here. I'd love for you maybe to share a little bit about yourself, a little bit your journey within. I'm going to use journeys twice. It's always
Right.
on
It
words.
happens all the time with us Journeys people. Director of Retail Data Analytics for Journeys. I've been with the company for 25 years, 12 years in our stores, running stores, 13 years in our home office, 3 of which was in our operations team. And then since 2015, I've been in this role that has expanded to my current department.
That's amazing. And in particular in your role, data analytics, I mean, we're talking a lot about data analytics. Did the role always exist? And now that you have it, what's the intended goal that you're driving?
No, the role did not exist. When I came into the office, we're a very performance-driven company. We're commission-based. Our employees are out there trying to do a good job. We really believe in what we do and we do it right. We've got cool shoes. We've got cool music, cool employees. But we were behind on data. We weren't even counting traffic. We did not have a workforce management system. Schedules were being done ad hoc, and really no roll-up or visibility. So we rolled out traffic, and I was part of that project in getting that information in. And really the low-hanging fruit for us first was getting just some of our numbers up. But really the issue turned into, to use that data actually created a lot more workload. If the store manager cared, they were spending way more time trying to figure out the right schedule with no way to measure it. In the rearview mirror, maybe, but nothing going into it. Our district managers, our regionals, everyone was putting in a lot more work to try to get it right now that we had this information. So my role was created during that time to try to be a liaison between the office and the field and figure that out on the fly. And during that time, we were also chasing a workforce management partner that we felt like fit our stores. And at NRF in 2018, I went by the StoreForce booth, and really a great partnership started from there. And so we were able to roll out StoreForce and start to actually measure our intentions and make sure that, hey, we're trying to make good schedules. How well are we doing?
And maybe tell a little bit about that first year, that transition. I mean, that's change management with your managers who probably take pride in how they do schedules. How did that first year go for the change? And also, what immediate results did you start to see?
The first year was really successful, but it was a lot of moving from A to B. We didn't go into it with additional labor budget. I didn't have money to spend along with the new scheduling system. And so we were really looking at it from a high level and trying to get our weeks right. Anyone who runs labor for a retail company knows you have wasteful weeks coming out of peak season where maybe you still use too much labor. The week right after Thanksgiving tends to be heavier than it needs to be on a long holiday season, things like that. So we were able to kind of move on that pretty quickly without spending into it and get additional success. But it was a lot because it was still change management of teaching our stores the system. There's an autonomy piece there where they kind of had the ability to make their schedule and no one's saying, no, that's wrong, But our field leadership is so strong, and you put a number in front of them that says this is going to make your sales better, they're the best partners that you could have. And so buy-in was really good.
That's a great way of looking at it. It sounds to me like there's the benefit to the stores and giving them data. And then there was the benefit in terms of the business being able to analyze and plan ahead.
Correct.
And you have the benefit, obviously, of now using StoreForce for a while. But when you think about, we were talking about in the slides there, that gap, what level of awareness did that provide you now with the data? And I'm thinking of people in the audience that maybe don't have the insights. What was the learns?
The learns was the thing we learned was, we are empathetic. I think one of the benefits of me coming from a store is I understand there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of workload, and managers are generally trying to make the best decision for their store, their people, to run their business properly. And our change management was really showing them the gap between a good schedule and a bad schedule, what it does for their business. And there's a little bit of a leap of faith there where it's like, you know, these hours that I'd prefer to use here because it might feel like it will make my life easier. If I get a great sales trend going by moving these into the right place, by moving my comp number up, I'll start to generate some momentum that's going to kind of take care of everything. Whereas when you use the hours in the wrong spot, you're not going to create any momentum for your business.
And obviously the awareness is to the business, be it your role and also your business partners. What were some of the takeaways for, say, the corporate side or the field leaders? What did they benefit from using the tool?
I think there was an analysis paralysis that was going on when we were trying to figure it all out on the fly. And actually, there was probably a little bit of time where I don't want to say it became too easy, but they're looking at a peak coverage number and it's like, okay, that's it. That's a good schedule. So we had to obviously work to prove out that, just like as you showed on the previous slide, that those buckets are meaningful. And we're never going to get a store from 70 to 90 consistently overnight. But they really bought into this idea of, you know, when they're approving a schedule, if they can get it from 72 to 78, that's going to make a meaningful difference. And we just kept nudging it in the right direction. And then it's our job to come back to them and show the results and how it's helping the business so that we keep that going. But our managers, again, performance is core to our culture. And so it's all about showing the end result to maintain that buy-in.
In today's modern world, we don't lack for data. If anything, we might have more data. And what I heard in there is taking all this time to actually, you're spending your time sorting the data as opposed to asking the right questions and what actions. And it sounded like that was a shift from all of our time just to kind of get a sense of what the data is telling us to, oh, it's peak coverage. We can focus on the actions at this point. Do you find that that's changed? Managers can spend a fair bit of time writing schedules. How have you found their time investment in terms of scheduling has shifted over the years?
It's funny because all of our managers that have been with us through this process, they're probably stalwarts for us in this because they remember how hard it was before, but it's been years now. And so we have managers that come in and this is just kind of how life is. And so some of them are often, you know, digging for additional data, and there is this kind of analysis paralysis. We want to give them sense of ownership of the business, while also helping guide them in the right direction and lighten their workload. They do have a lot to do. And so that's up to us to continue to maintain that trust so that that happens naturally. Yeah. Everyone on my team ran stores for Journeys. So all of our analytics team has run a store and can over the phone empathize with our store managers and what they're going through. And again, we don't try to solve everything overnight, but it's like, how do we make this a little bit better than it was to make, you know, if it's even 1% comp at a time, that adds up meaningfully.
And, you know, as we started, I talked about very often we see clients or people that are looking at our tool, they empower the stores, they give them the target, but they let them build it without any data to guide those decisions. And it sounds like by informing them, it's helped them become more efficient. Why don't we actually look at the comp 25%, but based on Journeys data? And I'll just take a moment for people in the audience. So the graph is very similar to what we saw. The colors are a little bit different here. And if we just pause for a moment and just look at the graph, even at the 50% peak coverage, 60, you are seeing comp positive results. I'd love to get your thoughts on that level of success. Like, look at the size of how many schedules are consistently done at 70 or 90%. I'd love to get your thoughts on how you've done that.
It took everyone in our organization. We're very proud of this chart. Our field team, chasing sales, our buying team, everyone was involved in this. But from my point of view, what was important was we had good momentum going. To your point, we were up 3.3 even on the lower end here, but we had to make the most of this momentum that we saw. And the comp numbers are great. I'm specifically happy that the two biggest circles are the 70 and 80 and the 80 to 90, because that wasn't the case a couple years ago. That would have shifted at least one section to the left. It probably would have been 60, 70, and then 70, 80 would have been our two biggest groups. So we shifted quite a few stores into that 80 to 90 bucket. And a 9.8% comp is great, but a 13.3% comp is even greater. So really took the whole team effort, and again, our managers buying in. When we roll something out or give them a new metric or give them a new tool, we really try to make sure that it is related to, or we can connect it to something that we already culturally believe in. So we've believed for a long time that a good schedule is a difference maker on your comp. The quote here, a good schedule is worth plus 10%. A bad schedule loses you 10%. Mike Seipert, who's our chief operating officer, he's my boss, our executive vice president of sales and operations. He told me this in 2004. So we've believed this for a long time. We had no way to measure whether we were doing a good job or not. But when he was one of our regional vice presidents and he was over the area that I was working in, I heard him say this. I heard many leaders say this over the years, long before we were counting traffic, long before we were partners with StoreForce. So peak coverage for us was just connecting that idea that when we do the best we can, the journey's experience we're going for, we're going to execute at a high level, but we have to have our employees in the right place to do that.
I mean, you were just highlighting how this would have been a year ago or before, and this is impressive data. Also on the slide, the bottom right, we are showing what the financial value would be if all those schedules moved up by band. If you're looking for the simple math, it's the $50 million. If every schedule moved up simply one band for journeys, already an impressive year, as you heard from before, $50 million. Would you like to know what your value is worth, and that through not more hours, better allocation of your hours, you could chase that down? You had mentioned earlier about not every week a store might hit it, and we mentioned that at the beginning as well. What obstacles do your store face, and how do you help guide them? Like maybe they're at 70, but how do we get them to 80?
The initial, the thing that the stores initially want is the more hours, right? I need this and I need this, and if I do that, I'll hit a better number, but I need this too. And I'll get into it in a little bit. There are certain times that we are maybe more open to that, but it's important to know this was not executed with more hours at an overall. Certainly some stores got more hours, but at an overall, this was not executed with more hours. So it's really kind of getting that buy-in a store at a time, and I think our district managers do most of the heavy lifting on that, right? My team is there to support, but it's our district managers saying, hey, this 3 hours, if we move it over to Saturday, you need that coverage for Saturday, because that's the only way we're going to get sales moving in the right direction. I understand you want some additional help for stock or whatever it may be in the middle of the week, but during like the 38 weeks of the year that are non-peak, you just have to make good decisions. Yeah. And even if there's 3 decisions to make and you choose to make one of those decisions nudging your peak coverage up, that's still a win, right? You may not take all 3 shifts and put them over onto the weekend. We may not win that battle that thoroughly, but just getting everyone at least trying to nudge that in the right direction, because, ideally, more hours would fix it, yeah. But none of us, can go to the CFO and just say, hey, trust me, this is going to work, and, just write that bill ahead of time. You got to get the momentum going before you ask for that, investment.
Yes, I appreciate that. And a bit of a reminder, because we know the tool, but we said there's 20 hours. That's what we're measuring, 20 hours. The difference of a store being 70%, 80% could be the difference of a shift. a 4-hour shift on a Saturday, it doesn't have to feel it's this massive change. It could be the simplest of execution. Well, I've worked with many of my clients where simply investing in a 4 or 5 hour shift on a Saturday or Sunday changes their traffic per labor hour and means they have the ideal coverage to offer that ideal customer experience. So there are times where they might not hit 90, but you could make a delta in a very small way. The other thing within our tool, it's not a broad number. We break it down to day and shift. We will tell you exactly where that shift should be. It should be at 2 to 4 in this store. And if you cover that shift, here's what it could mean for your business. So very specific information, not just generally, well, I put it on Saturday, but I still don't have my numbers. No, it was Saturday at 2 to 4 o'clock. That makes the difference for you. I'm wondering how this data has helped inform, and I think this is the part where we were talking before, your strategy as you're looking forward. Does it inform, you mentioned some stores might get more laborers, others don't. Does it inform how you target and plan for stores?
It does. It's very important for us going forward. We have a new store concept, Journeys 4.0. We have about 85 stores out right now, and it's been very, very successful so far. And a mover in every bucket we care about: sales, traffic, conversion. So it's just been a huge win. And as we're investing in those stores, being able to easily see, for anyone who's not seen the interface, peak coverage is at the top right of the schedule. You make your changes, you make your edits. You could see the number go up and down based on the decisions that you made. We are in these locations putting hours in, and there is actually more non-selling to do. We're shipping to these stores more and all of that. So we're really trying to take advantage of the tool and ensure that because the sales trend allows for it, we're able to give a little bit onto the non-selling side while also chasing these trends that we can really take advantage of on the weekends.
I appreciate you just bringing up non-sell. Very often when we work with new clients, they have their targets, which is inclusive of all the tasking. Here's the hours for the day, and we trust the stores to know where to task. And commonly what happens is they will put more hours on a Monday or Tuesday where their shipments are and undervalue where their traffic is and where they can drive it. We have the ability to actually separate non-selling hours from selling, so you can have as true of a representation of what your peak coverage is and be able to track your non-selling. The obstacle when you just put it all into one bucket is you don't have the insights of effective selling, and you don't have any more insights of how your non-sell hours are being used. One store could be using 20 hours to receive a shipment, another could be using 10, but you have no way of knowing what the average is and how to guide them for this. So we have means to help you in both ways of those. Let's maybe shift gears a little bit. I had mentioned at the beginning workforce management. We also do data insights. And I was intrigued by this, that you've recently turned on live data coming into the system. You can have a dashboard that is live, updating as often as you like with key metrics that inform the store of what they need to do right in the moment to drive their business. I'd love to get the strategy and thoughts about when you turned it on and how it's impacted your business.
This one, if I'm being honest, this was actually the easiest change management project that I ever did. I think our employees were begging for this for a long time. So this was one where we were delivering something that they had been asking for, that we had had some roadblocks as far as getting the data to you on our side, getting the data to you guys. But we turned this on in June of 2024, right before our BTS season. And it has been a huge success and game changer for us. Again, very competitive on the sales floor. Our employees don't like having bad numbers assigned to them, right? So if they're seeing sales off, especially because of conversion, they're coaching on the fly. They're kind of redirecting resources back into ensuring that we get to the customer first, because that's the most important thing. So it's been a huge help, raises engagement. You know, the initial period of time, I had to kind of put the word out there. You're not going to make your sales better staring at it. So check in every once in a while, mark certain times throughout the day, every 2 hours or so. But it's really been a help, and it's really allowed us to also flow our staffing upwards or downwards as we need to, not necessarily like on a store by store granular level, but if we see a specific holiday date or tax money hitting early or something like that, it allows our field leadership to get the word out quickly and say, hey, looks like tax checks have come in. Let's get an additional person added tonight. It's always on a Wednesday or Thursday for those who know, right? And you'll see that influx of traffic. Or if we're overperforming a deviation and things like that. So there's several different layers that we've been able to action this information. That's been huge.
If I look at the timeline you'd mentioned of traffic, think 2014, StoreForce 2019, live data 2024, I'm wondering the impact you've seen that have on your managers, maybe their acumen and overall business knowledge.
Yeah, I like to think we've always been very data driven, but we just didn't have access to a lot of data. And so our managers have always had some additional numbers besides sales for them to care about, for them to mark the health of their business, whether it be productivity or something like that. And what I think really has been huge, though, is this prepares them for the next bigger store that they take. You know, generally speaking, if your first store is at a certain volume range, you're having access to a lot more business information than before. And that allows us to kind of see that growth happen as we move them up a volume level, which is key to us because driving volume in our top doors is, you know, our number one initiative. And so I think having that ownership, we say run it like you own it, and providing them with that information has been huge because ultimately I can preach whatever I want to from the home office. Our store manager is the most important person. They are in charge of how our customers treated in each store, in charge of how we present to the customer in each store, and scheduling is a huge part of that. You could be the best salesperson in the world. If you have too many people to help, a couple of those people thought you were great, and a lot of people didn't think you were very good.
Yeah. That ownership piece is something that stands out every time we talk to new potential clients is we give so much ownership of the business to the stores. And I understand why but if we're not providing it with data, be it scheduling insights or live sales, how are we actually helping them being owners? And ultimately it is your business. So how do you ensure your brand experience? You want to make sure you're equipping them and giving them the right insights into the data that's going on. One other thing when we think about StoreForce is having a version of the truth. Have you found the ability to send reports or focus your metrics to what the manager's looking at keeps everyone aligned on the same business priorities?
We probably, as everyone does, do too much, and we look at it every year and it's like, we got to send less reports or we've got to streamline, and then we look and it's hard to figure out which ones to get rid of. But from a standpoint of scheduling good schedules and some of the things that we do within StoreForce, we've kind of honed it into two key focuses. That's peak coverage and sales leadership, which is another tool within the system. And really saying that if we do these two things well, we know that there's a conversion driver with whatever number of customers that we get. We have the data to prove that both leverage. And just kind of going back to the ownership of for the managers, if you look, looking at our graph, we're not forcing people to do the 80 and the 90% every single week. So they have to make those decisions. And so the reporting is to compel them to choose to make the good schedule so that they still feel that ownership and that they're behind it. We're not having people make a schedule, a DM or anyone at the office and say, this is what you guys are going to work. So yeah. I think visibility to the numbers is critically important.
If I was a store manager and I could see how much it would be worth to my business, and I think that awareness to that, right? And so it's not about compliance, it is about ownership, but ownership by knowing what it's worth and where your efforts go.
Yep.
Right? Let's maybe talk about how you as the business owners are leveraging this data when you're planning for your peak seasons. I'd love to get your thoughts on how all this information is guiding you and when your peak season is and how you use this to be able to make sure you're planning correctly.
Yeah. Peak season, obviously there's holiday. Back to school is critically important for Journeys as well. It's a huge time of the year for us, July to August, tax-free and all of those things. And so what we've done is on those kind of 14 weeks of the year, we really do lean into the peak coverage, and we are a little bit more purposeful about ensuring that the schedule we want is in place. We'll do additional office days for our district managers, additional phone calls with the managers weeks ahead of time, earlier than we usually make and approve schedules. And so if you looked at our data set, you'd see a lot of 60s and 70s peak coverage during non-peak. And then you'll see most of the organization get into the high 70s, 80s, high 80s during the most important weeks of the year. So we really kind of ensure through analysis that we have everything set up to have the best peak season that we can. And I think that's why you could see those comp numbers move so big on our entire data set, is because our best peak coverage numbers were during our busiest weeks, during our highest volume weeks.
I think that's a great call out. We shared that insight earlier that 50% of your traffic happens in 20 hours. It's probably true that your sales are happening in key weeks, and having the ability to know that every schedule is good, but knowing those key weeks you need to win in. You can't be finishing the holiday season with hitting under 70%, at least as we saw in that way.
Right.
So does it change? Has it given you insights as to how to target differently? Have you found that over the time it's guided you to say, if we invest here or this store more hours, has it allowed you to be able to grow the business that way?
The way that we look at that is, if we're going to go for it, as an overall, we really want to go for it during those 14 weeks. We have to know what we're dealing with in the other 38 weeks to do so. The labor planning that we do going into a fiscal year, bucketing our dollars by month, because we know that we want to be able to have the best schedules. There's also an additional layer to it. Holiday is a lot more straightforward. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing for the most part. Back to school is incredibly complicated, and where we've been able to drive success and double-digit comps back to school, back-to-back years, is getting the data fit on the front side as well. If a school system in Des Moines, Iowa goes back to school, it was Wednesday last year and it's Thursday this year, that is one extra peak day. And if you don't have your coverage and data set up properly, your peak coverage would be inaccurate. And that's that day. I definitely experienced it as a manager where I open the gate and I'm wondering why it's really busy. I didn't expect, I don't have the people for this. So we're always looking at that. Or if school goes in a day or two earlier in the week, that's going to make that weekend sharper.
Yeah.
So we actually start undertaking that in May. My team, working with our buying team, working with our local district managers to kind of hone in dates for every single store. Because if we say peak coverage is a great schedule, but our underlying data is wrong, you're going to have a misread on that number, helping you make a good schedule. So that's been really important. And I think the last 2 years has really helped us sprint into the BTS season. And frankly, perform all the way through the season as each different state and area fires off, and we have the budget allocated for everyone to be able to use what they need when they're at peak, and then the schedule is in place to execute where the demand of customers is going to be.
If I heard you, because you said it, and I just really want to highlight it for anyone in the audience, you've comped yourself at your busiest season back to school the last 2 years.
Yes, we had a double-digit comp in 2024, FY25, and then this previous BTS, we did our earnings release for Q3. We had a very, very strong BTS, and we're able to double-digit comp on top of that double-digit.
That is nothing to overshadow when you think about traffic, how malls are doing, how people buy online, and this is your stores that you're doing.
Stores.
2 years in a row comp. And what stood out to me when we were looking at your data there, you highlighted how year prior that might have been 60, 70. So having the data, consistently getting better incremental improvement. And on that slide, we talked about $50 million that's maybe available for this year that they could chase down. So it sounds like rinse and repeat. This process is working and it's proving well in your sales.
100%. You know, we're very happy with the run that we're on. And as we prepare for FY27, I'm looking at that chart. As we prepared for this, I looked at it a bunch and I'm like, all right, I need to, as many people as we can nudge to the right, because that's it's what it's all about. You got to beat your numbers and level up each year. So that data is a huge part of kind of getting everyone a game plan going into it, looking at these numbers and saying, here's how we're going to win.
Yeah. One last thought. There's a retailer in the audience that is maybe where Journeys was back 2014-19, driven, passionate, great product, but maybe lacking the data. What would you offer them in terms of taking that next step and how much it's impacted your business?
I would just say that flying blind is you're going to kind of fall into the same pitfalls over and over and over again because you can't see them coming. Retail is beautiful. I love retail, and the work that goes into making these great looking stores, training your associates, getting them ready to help your customers. And we build these great stores for customers to ideally find what they're looking for, leave happy. It's a gigantic roadblock if one bad experience, it doesn't matter how great the store looks. And if that's because of scheduling and a lack of visibility to where you use your labor and if it landed where you intended or not, you're going to kind of fall into the same traps over and over again. We certainly did. As even in our best years, we had days that would come through, weeks that would come through disappointing because we weren't as prepared as we thought we were.
I love that you brought it all the way back to the customer experience, the interaction with associates, which is why people still come to malls. They're looking for that brand experience to come to life and how the data has helped guide you in that way. So I'd like to thank Billy for joining us today. And I mentioned earlier that question, we had the slide up, where would your stores sit? And because we've extended our community to you today, we'd like to extend an offer that if you want to know how your stores would show up on a graph like that, come to our booth or scan the QR code, bring us what you believe is your best schedule and 4 to 6 weeks worth of traffic, and we will actually model it out for you to be able to show how good your schedules are and what your potential comp could be for your business, so that you can get started right away. The one thing about this presentation I hope you see is you might not have known before, but now that you know there's that potential, you can't unsee it. So how long will it be before we take action to get you that comp this year? Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.